Cooking with Rhetoric by Brett Dubois. When I first saw this assignment, I thought it was nuts to think that there would possibly be any rhetoric of historical significance in a cookbook. But as I began analyzing the cookbook from the McQueen family from the mid 20th century, I noticed that there were some things we could learn. We start by analyzing the McQueen cookbook from the 1950s about. In here we can see that the cookbook uses a list format for the ingredients and then goes into a very detailed description of how to prepare the dish, in this case, oatmeal bread. When we compare that to a recipe from the same family from a century before, we can see that the older recipe has a lot less detail and is written in completely paragraph form. There are a few reasons from this, and we can see this by looking at food over the course of years. For starters, according to Leet, fast food began to spring up in the 1950s. The increase in fast food chains caused the need for a good cook in the household to decrease, possibly promoting a need for more detailed recipes for those rare instances when people actually did cook. Furthermore, according to Cody Delestrity, that families began eating less together in the mid-20th century and as time has gone on. This would mean that the recipes might not need to be as long, and again, a need for a cook would be less. Therefore, for recipes in this time period, they would have to be more detailed than in the past when families ate together and the need for a cook was much greater. Finally, we can complete the assignment by analyzing the rhetoric used in cookbooks, and we can actually see at the beginning of the 1950s cookbook a classic case of ethos. Here, the author shows how much food is going to be produced by this recipe. This amount shows credibility by proving the author has made this recipe before. By putting it right at the start, he or she builds trust with the audience, allowing them to move forward and understand that the author knows what they are talking about. The second use of rhetoric in this assignment and in this cookbook doesn't exactly have a particular title to it, but what the author does is make sure to go into so much detail that any audience can understand what's going on. Because the cooks were less skilled at this time, this increased detail allowed the author's message to be heard, even if the audience wasn't as experienced as the original chef, or if the original chef had forgot the original recipe. With this rhetoric and historical analysis, we can see we actually can learn things from looking at past cookbooks.